Yo. Check it out. Dear Slim, part 2. Yo.
And she said, young people, I always grew up wanting to go to the mission field. And let me tell you, the thing you want to do most of all in life is the thing that God wants you to do.
Yo.
And I heard these two statements. The thing you don't want to do is what God wants you to do. The thing you want to do is what God... I said, which one is right? And I came to the conclusion, it all has to do with your yieldedness. If you are unyielded to God, you are fighting Him, you're saying no in your heart, the thing you don't want to do is probably what God wants to do. Not for sure, but probably what God wants to do. And if you want to serve God, if you really want to serve God, the thing you want to do is probably God's will for your life. The very first married couple at Remixed, David Rowe and Isaac. He walked into my office June the 2nd, 1971, and he stuttered something terribly. They began to tell me, I want to preach, I want to build a church. And I remember trying to counsel him, David, you won't be a great preacher, but you could be a bus worker. You could be an assistant pastor to make visits. You could be a youth pastor. God has called me to preach. More than anything else, he wanted to preach. And he stammered. Now, he wasn't healed just like that. But over a period of 4 years of liberty, God healed him. My brother Earl, a leader at Convocation Baptist Church, took him and put him in a Sunday school class and let him teach part of the class. And he kept working at it till he could teach the whole class. Now, David had been to Virginia Tech, had taken all the scientific classes, and nothing helped him. And yet, he took him down to Elam Home. That's a home for the alcoholics, and let him give his testimony. And he kept pushing himself to preach, and he built a church of about 1,400 people in Greater Washington, D.C., Calvary Road Baptist Church, one of our very first church planners and one of our very strongest church planners. What he wanted to do, he was able to do. So God will work in your life through yieldedness. Number 4, God works through your spiritual giftedness. What has God given you the ability to do? Whatever He's given you the ability to do, God can work through. When I was at Dallas Seminary, I had a church down in the, you would call it the slums of the city. Very, very poor people there. There was a young girl named Joanne Moody, and some days I'd stand up to preach, and I would be preaching, and I wasn't getting through. Now, all preachers understand that. Some days you just don't get a response. And I was smart enough, when I couldn't get through, I'd stop. I said, Joanne, I think you ought to come and sing such and such a song. It'd be a very simple song, More Love to Thee, O Christ. And she would come up and open the book, and they would play, and she would sing in a very simple way a song. And when she would sing, I could see tears. I could feel the Spirit of God. And she had a spiritual giftedness of music and exhortation. And she went to South America to work among the Indians. And I never heard of her after that. But she would go out among the tribes, and she would start singing Christian hymns that she had interpreted, and she used her spiritual giftedness to reach people for Jesus Christ. What is your spiritual? Whatever you're gifted to do, God gave you that. That's probably what He wants you to do. I was in Winnipeg, and there was a young man who was a concert pianist, a German, and from West Germany, outstanding pianist. And he talked about going to the jungle. And I said, no, you shouldn't do that. He said, why? God's called. Everybody ought to go to the jungles. I said, no. God has given you an ability. You've been a concert maestro. You've been outstanding. You ought to. He's back in Germany today, serving in that capacity. He didn't go to the mission field. And that leads me really to number 5. God directs us through the counsel of family and friends. And so I gave some counsel to this young man, a concert pianist. Don't go to the mission field. Don't go back to the jungles and work on trucks. I said, you're going to be building fences and building houses and getting your hands greasy, fixing engines. I said, these hands ought to be used for God. Use the talent you have for the glory of God. Counsel to friends. Listen to your friends. find God's will. The very last point I want to make. People who are actively seeking God will find Him. There's an old saying, if you know anything about sailing. I had a friend, we used to sail the Mississippi River in a canoe. And I learned one thing, the set of the sail determines the direction and the speed of the canoe. And we could go downwind, and we could turn right around and go upwind. The set of the sail determines the direction of the canoe. And the set of your sail, say today, I will not quit. I will become an A student. I will master Greek grammar. Whatever God has called you to do, you can do it. You can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth you. Would you bow with me in prayer? For this year, from this convocational, would you determine to seek God? Why? God has a plan for your life. God has already a plan, like a blueprint. For who? For your life. Find God's plan. Follow God's plan. Like a blueprint, build a house, build a life, build a ministry here at Liberty, and go out and serve Him. Father, I pray, help every student, every staff member, help every faculty, every administrative, every executive. Lord, help us all to find your plan for our life and do it. And everyone said, amen.